There was a challenging article in the paper earlier in the week about VCU and vaccinations and unhappy medical students. And I just hope you'll understand that there's always two sides to any news story. And we were working on a vaccination distribution, and there were some misunderstandings that, of course, go to the press before there's an opportunity to respond. So putting that aside, VCU is front and center with a very aggressive vaccination plan, not only for our students, but also for our faculty and staff here on the MCV campus. And then we will also be aggressively spreading out to the community. You may have seen that Governor Northam has lowered the age of people in the community that can be first wave for vaccinations. It lowered it to age 65. So my husband has asked me specifically, he just turned 65, to find out where he can get his vaccination. And I haven't found that out yet today. I haven't explored that. But the point is for us is that we are all in this vaccination mode, trying to get organized, and our students, huge request for students to come and help, our faculty, our staff, everybody, it's all hands on deck. And I will be talking with our faculty and staff more tomorrow about this, and really hoping that all of us can get behind the vaccination effort, because it is really one university when we talk about this, and we all have a role in this. So that's probably the frontline story at every school on the MCV campus right now, is getting everybody vaccinated. You probably have heard in the news that our cases in Central Virginia are extremely high right now. It is stressing our health system in a very big way. The positivity rate I saw in Central Virginia, I think right now is close to 20%. And just even here in Richmond, it's been hovering around 16%. So it's really been really has reinforced the need to get people vaccinated. And once, of course, it's it's about a 3 to 4 week process to get fully vaccinated. That's, I guess, a month plus a couple weeks, actually. So by the time we get people through their first and second dose and give them another week after that to attain immunity, we're looking at probably mid-March before we have a larger population that's gotten their vaccination. So that's front and center to our world. Whoops. Then these are interrelated. So spring 2021 is upon us. Classes start next week. And what are we going to do? Well, the university has communicated the intent to continue online learning. For our large classes, we can have students come into the labs and they can do clinical learning. There's an asterisk to that. Obviously, we have challenges with even clinical learning right now, but we are planning to have some learning in our labs, not full scale like we might. They will be significantly reduced in the number of hours that they'll be coming into the lab. The type of activities they'll be doing in the lab, the number of hours that they'll be in the lab. And we know that the number of times or the number of people that we're interacting with in an indoor environment certainly increases risk of transmission. And our intent is to make sure that our students have a balance between learning experiences that are reasonable, but also keeping our students, our faculty, and our staff safe. I think I saw in the participant list a couple of our CLC staff members. So if you have questions about what that looks like, we certainly have them available to answer specific questions about CLC. But I will say that not only this CLC format, but our faculty and staff have had to work very hard to continue to make adjustments for the learning and our students. And we had orientation actually today for students. And I'm sure coming in the door in the middle of a pandemic, we just had to reinforce everybody that our mantra is to stay flexible, and we will do everything that we can to make sure that they have adequate learning. Another component of learning is the direct patient care in the health system and other hospitals. And it should be no surprise that we've got some limitations on what we'll be able to do immediately for clinical learning. The VCU Health system, fortunately, is partnering with us to make sure that our graduating students get first priority for clinical learning space. So maybe some of you had heard that our VCU is not accepting students, and that was an announcement a few weeks ago. But we have, with some exception requests, we were able to prioritize some students in some units to be able to continue their learning. So we will be having our graduating undergraduate senior students, those who graduate in May, continue their clinical learning. So we do want them to graduate on time and enter the workforce on time. And then our nurse practitioner students have also been given access, those that are graduating, access to clinical learning. So huge shout out to our partners at VCU Health for partnering with us and making sure that we have that opportunity for our students. And again, I can't say enough about our program directors and Dr. Barksdale, who was our associate dean, for helping to orchestrate all of the adjustments that are continually being made for learning. And then we also have engaging with our VCU Health system. So with this pandemic, I mentioned before, Art Kellerman, our new chief, has pretty much called on all hands on deck approach to how we conduct ourselves in the weeks to come. And I already mentioned vaccinations and hopefully being able to get our faculty and our students engaged in vaccination opportunities in our health system and also in the community. But there's also a really unique opportunity that one of our faculty members has orchestrated, Dr. Shelley Smith, who happens to be not only on our faculty, but she has a position at the health system, has come up with a really creative idea with her team and with our faculty to offer students clinical learning activities by doing what we'll call remote discharge teaching for COVID patients. So essentially what that's going to look like is we'll be setting up a call center at the School of Nursing, socially distanced call center, of course, faculty members supervising students, and those students will be doing the discharge teaching, which is fairly complex. It's not just going over a list and sending them home. It's a lot of information that they need to have. And by being able to do this virtual discharge teaching for COVID patients being discharged from VCU Health, that really provides a lift for the nurses. It's a help to the nurses to be able to have that effort done by others. So that is going to start next week, and we'll be piloting next week, 2 days doing this with our faculty, and then the students will join the faculty the week after. We'll start off 2 days a week, and as needed, we will increase the support that we're providing. So it really does meet the need of the health system by leveraging our students to help with the discharge teaching, and it gives legitimate virtual clinical learning activities to our students. So it's a win-win really for everyone. And then there's also this tab here about surge hospital support. We have last spring, the VCU Health System converted the Honors College, which is on the Monroe Park campus, into a surge hospital in the event that we maximize the capacity at the health system and needed to have an overflow for patient care. That got set up in the spring when we first had the first surge of the pandemic, and it never needed to be utilized. However, they didn't tear it down. So it's sitting ready to be implemented if needed. With the numbers of COVID patients that are at VCU Health, we are not sure if it will be needed, but we are anticipating that it might be needed. And if that's the case, this is another place where our faculty, our staff, and our students can potentially engage with the VCU Health System to provide staffing and other resources to make sure that the surge hospital has adequate people in there to take care of patients. The patients that would be going into the overflow surge hospital would not be COVID patients. These would be non-acute or less acute individuals who are not COVID. So that's another opportunity for our school to really provide a legitimate service to our VCU Health partners. And then more positive notes, perhaps. I'm excited to share that we have a new member of our School of Nursing team. Dr. Angela Duncan is the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the College of Health Professions here at VCU, and she has agreed to share her expertise with us as well. So she now has a shared appointment for diversity, equity, inclusion between our two schools. And she starts, I think she started this week formally, and she'll be working with our faculty, staff, and students in various capacities to help us on our diversity, equity, and inclusion mission. So we are very excited to have her join our team and look forward to the guidance that she can provide our school, and more to come on that. And then the other thing that's on our mind every day, probably some people more than others, Dr. Barksdale is living, breathing, eating CCNE accreditation, but we do have our accreditation site visit coming up. I've mentioned this to you probably over the last year several times, but it's like getting ready to happen very soon. So our site visit actually happens in March of this year. Our self-study, which is a document that we have to submit as part of the accreditation process, is due in less than a month now. So we are kind of in that final stage of writing this self-study. And the self-study essentially is an analysis of how we're doing across standards set by the Department of Education for accreditation of programs. And so we will be engaged with that soon. You'll probably see communication about our accreditation, and we will probably be bringing together stakeholder meetings. So if you get an invitation or you see communication about that, we hope that you'll be able to join us for that. And then this is what I'm excited about. So this is what you call the happy dance with free icons on PowerPoint. So these are people dancing, and this is me. Actually, I'm one of these people dancing. And the reason I'm so excited, this is the announcement that I told you I have to credit Dr. Kellerman for the first time in the 7.5 years that I've been dean, and for the long number of years prior to me that Nancy Langston was dean, we have not been able, up until recently, to have, drum roll please, drum roll, School of Nursing faculty practice. Like this is huge. So you may not know this unless you are a nurse practitioner that has history with us. Our School of Nursing nurse practitioner faculty have not, in quite some time, had an opportunity to practice at the health system in a nurse practitioner, as a nurse practitioner in their faculty role. I think this may have happened years ago, but in the last decade plus, and I want to say it's probably closer to 15 years, we have not been able to give our faculty who are nurse practitioners an assignment for practice as part of their nursing faculty job. They would get practice opportunities, but they would have to do it above and beyond their regular job. So this is a major breakthrough. It required changes in policies, and it's one of those things that it wasn't that it couldn't be done. We just had to have the right people who were willing to allow us to break through this barrier. So we will have our first cohort of, I think we're starting with 5 nurse practitioner faculty who will have a practice assignment this spring. And we will be bringing in more of our faculty who are nurse practitioners who wish to practice as part of their workload, part of their work plan. We'll get them placed. The benefit to this that may not be so obvious to some of you is that when I'm interviewing nurse practitioner faculty or people to become nurse practitioner faculty at our school, they almost always ask about practice opportunities at the health system. And I have not been able to hire some people in the past because I couldn't say, yes, you can practice 2 days a week and then have a 60% effort for teaching. That just wasn't possible in our current way. So this is going to help me recruit nurse practitioner faculty, and it will also help me retain nurse practitioner faculty, because I have lost nurse practitioner faculty because they didn't have an opportunity to practice at a sufficient level for their satisfaction. So this is really going to be, I think, a major paradigm change. And any faculty member now that I hire in the future as a nurse practitioner, that will be part of our conversation, is faculty practice and making sure that they get placed and get started with their practice. So and it's not just so much making sure that the faculty have the practice, but it enriches our nurse practitioner program by having our faculty in practice, and the students can be engaged as part of their clinical education with the nurse practitioner faculty. So it really will enhance in a very big way our NP program. So we're excited, and I probably have already said too much about it. You may be saying, well, okay, that's nice, but it really is a big deal for us. So I am going to stop. Those were my comments, and I'm sure many of you have questions, and I'm just going to do a quick scan here to see members of my team, to see who all is here, because if you ask a question, I may turn it over to some of my team members here on. So I see several people who I can include in the conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Pam, and we'll just start a Q&A.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I saw a couple of folks chime in on the chat when you shared that last tidbit of news. So thanks for chiming in, Shelley and Sherry. So yeah, I appreciate it, Dean Giddens, for providing an update for the folks on today. And there were 3 pre-submitted questions. I'm going to go ahead and read those off, and then Jean, feel free to answer them, or if you see someone else who you'd like to answer. So the first question is, what are your plans for securing preceptors for students in the APRN program?
Well, that is a great question, and that is an ongoing challenge, quite honestly, because there are so many programs and a lot of people seeking preceptorships, not only for nurse practitioner students, but also medical students, and the PA students. Did I see Dr. Barksdale on, or is she on and gone?
Let's see.
Is Dr. Barksdale here? I was going to let her speak to this. It looks, I think I saw her name earlier, but she may have left, and I don't see Carla on. So I'll just say, to answer that, what are we doing to get preceptors? A lot of it is relationship building. So our nurse practitioner faculty have networks, and those networks include other nurse practitioners in the community, and really helping to develop those relationships and provide incentives for them in different ways. So it is a challenge. Some nurse practitioners in some parts of the country get paid to be preceptors. And when there are opportunities for payment, and then you have another school that comes along and, well, we don't have money to give you, we would like you to precept, that becomes a challenge for us, because we do not right now collect funds to be able to pay preceptors. But we certainly are hoping to continue to identify them, develop relationships with them, and, at some point, sometimes those preceptors become our faculty. But I don't know that I have some kind of secret sauce that this is the method. It depends on the area. Some types of preceptorships are harder to place than others, but it does require, well, I'm not speaking to one other important aspect of it. We have dedicated staff who are always scouring the countryside for potential preceptors. So between our faculty making these relationships, our program directors, and of course our support staff, that's how we're continually looking for and identifying preceptors. So hope that answered the question.
Okay, that's great. Another question, do you think classes will remain online through the fall semester?
Through the fall, I don't know. I think a lot of that depends on what happens with the success of the vaccinations. if we can get the large percentage of the population immunized, I would say that we might be back by fall to regular scheduling. So I don't have a crystal ball on that one. But I will say the good news is if we have to continue online, we've done it. We know how to do it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's optimal, but we have been making it work.
Okay. And one final question, are there any plans for a master's program in education?
A master's program at the School of Nursing in education is probably what the question is. I think in years past, the School of Nursing may have had an education track in their master's program. What we are more likely to do than establishing a full master's degree related to nursing education is to create a certificate program related to education practices and health sciences, make it more broad to just nursing education. There is a lot of debate in nursing at the national level whether or not graduate nursing education is in itself a legitimate track, or if that is something that any nurse educator, regardless of what your background is, you take education courses to ramp up your teaching expertise as opposed to having that being the track, if that makes sense. But having it as a certificate program or professional development is the way that more nursing schools are going for the future.
All right, Jean, thanks for your thoughts and insights on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I haven't seen any questions come in directly to me to the chat box, so I'd like to just see if anybody would like to take themselves off of mute, if anybody has any questions or comments.
Well, I'll just say kudos because I'm a really old nurse practitioner. And thank you, Dean Giddens, because this is huge. And how well can a nurse practitioner teach if she can't practice? And to have a full-time job and then expect to practice outside of that is really outrageous, I think. So thank you so much.
Yes, well, you're welcome. And you hit the nail on the head. We talk about equity, right? And so how can we say that it's an equitable approach if they are limited on what they can do? I mean, if they're teaching for the university and they can't have a practice position as part of that, their option is to have a part-time job off hours. And by the way, there is a limit to 1 day a week at the university with their policies, right? So you're limited to 1 day a week and you have to do it on your own time. That just smacks of inequity. So,
right.
So, and we expect our program to be a strong academic program. Well, you want to have your nurse practitioner faculty really well connected into the practice. So it kind of just smacks of so many wrong things about what our paradigm has been. Art Kellerman understands nurse practitioners, and he is the kind of leader that will not take, oh, we can't do it because for an answer. It was one of the first things that I talked to him about when he came. He asked me the question, he teed it up perfectly. If there's any one thing you could change about VCU School of Nursing, what would it be? I didn't have to think even for a minute on that one. It's the problem that we have with nurse practitioners, and it's been a chronic problem. And he said, that's crazy. We shouldn't have that problem. So sometimes it just requires a leader to make expectations clear with other members, because we had a lot of barriers that we couldn't control. And so he needed to use his clout to share what his expectations were in the areas that were hanging us up. So, I can't really take the credit. I have to credit, our new leader for making it happen. But I will say that I for a lot of people at the university, I've been a broken record because I have voiced my displeasure about this over and over and over. And I think a lot of people have kind of just rolled their eyes like, yeah, there she goes again. So I don't think people really got it until he came. So huge.
Yeah, it looks like there are a couple of folks who have chatted, and Peggy, I see you've chimed in. You're already sharing the news about the new NP faculty practice. So thanks for helping us spread the news on that front. And another question here, are you seeing any changes, whether that's an increase or a decrease in the RN to BSN program numbers due to the pandemic or / children who are doing virtual school, etc.?
Well, let me just say what's happening with RN to BS enrollment in general, because that's kind of a two-part question. In the United States, the last decade, there has been a huge push to increase the number of baccalaureate nurses by 2020. That's part of the Future Nursing Report you may have heard of. So because of the Future Nursing Report, there was this huge national effort for people who are educated in community colleges and diploma programs to come back to school, get their baccalaureate degree. So what you saw for many years was this huge enrollment surge in RN to BS education. When you start seeing huge enrollment surges, what that means is then all the other schools that don't have an RN to BS program want to get in on the party. And then we had a huge number of universities and colleges that offered RN to BS in education, including a lot of private for-profit type programs. So now we have a market with lots and lots and lots of RN to BS programs. So although the national enrollment went up, there was a dilution in the number of students going to any one program. So our program enrollment had declined in part because of the options that were available. And then secondly, because there is once you reach a critical mass of people who needed to come back to school to get their RN to BS degree completed, we've seen a national decline of RN to BS enrollment. So there's a number of factors there. And it hasn't been a huge decline, but it has been clearly a slow decline because the number of people who need to come back to school has started to catch up. So it's that market need, right? How has enrollment been triggered by COVID? I think that isn't unique to RN to BS enrollment. I would say all of our programs have had students struggling with the COVID surge and the challenges of taking care of families. I know we were just talking about this with even our DNP programs. We have several students that have just, trying to take care of their kids, trying to do homeschooling, and then trying to go to school on top of that too. It has been very, very challenging for many of our students. So I can't give you a quantitative number, but I can tell you it's been noticeable that our retention, and it's not just in nursing, it's really in programs all across the United States. People have been challenged by this overall.
Let's see, does anybody else, if you would like to take yourself off of mute, feel free to do so. I haven't seen any. Let's see here. Oh, we have a comment. Thanks. It's nice to know the big picture and how we can help to encourage students to continue to push through. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a challenging time for everyone, really. This has been the most challenging year of my career. I will tell you that. And it's not because, it's just because of all the stuff and all the stress and all of the things that you can't control that you want to control. And then you think you know where you're going, and then you have to change directions. So I guess if nothing else, I've learned that flexibility and communication are probably the two biggest things that I've had to leverage in the last year. Communicate and communicate and communicate. And my team members will know I send out a lot of messages, and we've had a lot of meetings where we're just touching base to share news. We're going to have one tomorrow because there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 2 weeks. And sometimes the best way to help people feel like they're informed and fully understand is to just bring a meeting like this together and let people know what's going on, give them a chance to ask questions.
All right, I'm just going to click through here real quick.
We have had, while you're looking for other questions that people might submit, we are actively hiring again. Last summer, we were in the midst of a hiring freeze, which kind of stunk because as we have retirements or people moving into other positions, we were down faculty. But we have had, let's see, hired 4 people that we haven't announced all 4 yet, but we've had 4 people join our team, either already joined or in the process of joining. And we interviewed another person today. So we've got another position that we're wanting to fill. We have a department chair position open. We have research positions open. So yeah, we're kind of on a good roll right now with applicants. We've had a lot of really great applicants for our position. So what that tells me is that we've got people who are interested in coming, and that's a good thing when you can attract. It's always a good thing when there's a shortage of faculty to be able to have a lot of applicants for a position. So that's a good thing for us.
And Jean, it does look like another questions come in through the chat. And are students attending clinical rotations outside of VCU Health systems?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. We usually just talk about VCU, and they are our primary clinical partner. Over the last couple of years, I've been very intentional about building a relationship with HCA. They are a large network of hospitals, as you know, up and down throughout the whole country, really. And they've got multiple multiple facilities here in Central Virginia, as well as right here in Richmond. They are interested in having an academic partner. So we have developed a relationship, first of all, to try to enhance their staff to come into our RN to BS program. So we've got a special arrangement with that. And more recently, we have signed an MOU with them for a dedicated education unit. So I don't know if you know what that means, but essentially dedicated education unit is a unit where they're going to have their staff serve as lead preceptor roles, and they're going to have one-on-one, or I guess it's 2-to-1 with our students. And it's going to be just a completely different model than your traditional take 8 students to a unit and supervise them, you know. So we've got this new commitment with them, and they want to have more of our students at HCA. So they've got a guarantee that the MOU is essentially if we'll send them students, they'll guarantee the not only spots, clinical placements, but also working toward getting some of their staff, their nursing staff, to a point where they can precept and or potentially serve as faculty for us. So it's an opportunity really then for us to have expansion for our undergraduate program if we know that we've got the clinical sites to send them to. Because as you know, that's one of the biggest challenges for us to expand both our undergraduate and our graduate program is clinical sites. So it's a very important relationship that we've developed. And yes, we've got a lot of students now going to HCA. We've got students that go to the VA, and then a lot of different clinics and hospitals throughout Virginia for our nurse practitioner placements. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of some of our, our free clinics. I think of some of the different free clinics in our region, as well as different health systems with their clinics. It's really important for us to be able to continue to have those relationships.
I haven't seen other questions come in through the chat, so I'll take kind of a final call from anybody. All right, going once, twice.
I'm just going to do a shout out before we finish to acknowledge a couple of my teammates here that are on the call. Kim Curry-Larenko and Daphne, maybe you'd like to just say hello. Kim and Daphne have been behind the scenes figuring out how to bring our students into the labs to continue their learning. And they are amazing. They are flexible. They have upped the quality of the education, not only for the in-person sessions, but also have been very central to ensuring that there's quality in our virtual learning as well. So I just wanted, Kim, you can wave so they can find you in the thing, and Daphne as well. Really such a great job that they do for us and really for our students. So I could not be more pleased to have you guys on our team. So
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for either Kim or Daphne about the Learning Lab? Takes a lot of orchestration to maintain social distancing.
It does. Yes, it does. A lot of rethinking.
All right, Pam, well, I guess you can close us out then.
Yeah, so just a real quick thing. I, again, really appreciate everybody tuning in. For those of you who've been regulars, we do hope to host another handful of virtual events this winter and spring. So keep your eyes out for that. And Sydney will be sending out a survey link to you all later on today, so you can share your thoughts about today's program. And we're also always interested in hearing what you would like to hear from next. So please share your feedback and thoughts. And with that, we'll say thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Yeah, goodbye.